The scream that pierced through the Miami mansion at 2 a.m. wasn't unusual. 7-year-old Yelena Kozlov had nightmares almost every night. What was unusual was the way her new nanny, Hannah, ran barefoot across the cold marble floors without hesitation, her heart hammering as if the child's pain was her own. "Hannah!" Yelena's voice cracked through the darkness. "Are you mad at me? I woke you up again." Hannah found the little girl sitting in her massive bed, blonde hair tangled, brown eyes wide with terror and guilt. The same guilt Hannah had carried her entire 23 years, the guilt of being unwanted, abandoned, too much trouble for anyone to love. "Never, sweetheart, never," Hannah whispered, climbing onto the bed without thinking. But then Yelena said something that stopped Hannah's world completely. "Can you be my mum, just today, so I can sleep?" The words hung in the air like a prayer. Two orphans, one who never had a mother, one whose mother chose to leave, staring at each other in the darkness of a mansion that had everything except the one thing they both desperately needed: love. 3 weeks earlier, Hannah Martinez had stood outside the towering gates of the Star Island mansion, her single suitcase in hand, and her stomach twisted in knots. The job posting had been simple: live-in nanny needed, excellent pay, discretion required. What it hadn't mentioned was that she'd be working for Alexei Kozlov, a name whispered in Miami's underground with equal parts fear and respect. The man who answered the door was nothing like she'd expected. Yes, he was intimidating, 6'3" with sharp Slavic features and ice-blue eyes that seemed to see straight through her. But it was the way his white dress shirt hung open at the collar, revealing a muscular chest and an elegant wolf tattoo on the side of his neck, that made her breath catch. A platinum Rolex glinted on his wrist as he crossed his arms, studying her with the intensity of a predator. "You're younger than I expected," he said, his Russian accent barely detectable after years in America. "I'm 23. I've been caring for children since I was 16. Hannah lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. She'd survived 18 years in Miami's foster system. She could handle one wealthy Russian. "Why do you need this job?" The question was direct, clinical. Hannah had prepared for this. "I aged out of foster care 5 years ago. I've been working multiple jobs to survive, but I want stability. I want to make a difference in a child's life." Something flickered in those ice-blue eyes. "You have no family?" "None." The word came out steadier than she felt. Alexei was quiet for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in. Meet Yelena." The mansion was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay, marble floors that reflected the Miami sunlight, artwork that probably cost more than Hannah had ever seen in her life. But all of that faded when she saw the little girl sitting alone at a dining table that could seat 20. Yelena Kozlov was 7 years old and heartbreakingly beautiful, with platinum blonde hair and warm brown eyes that held too much sadness for someone so young. She looked up when they entered, and Hannah's heart clenched at the immediate wariness in her expression. "Yelena, this is Hannah. She might be your new nanny," Alexei said, his voice gentling in a way that surprised Hannah. "Hi, Yelena." Hannah knelt to the child's level, smiling softly. "What are you having for breakfast?" "Pancakes," Yelena whispered, then immediately looked at her father with wide eyes. "Did I do something wrong? Are you mad at me for talking to her?" The question hit Hannah like a physical blow. She recognized that fear, that constant anxiety about being too much, too loud, too needy. It was the same fear that had followed her through every foster home. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart," Hannah said gently. "You're being perfect." Alexei's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Yelena, finish your breakfast. Hannah and I need to talk." He led her to his office, a room that screamed power with its dark wood desk, leather chairs and windows overlooking the bay. The walls were lined with books in Russian and English, and Hannah noticed several framed photos of Yelena, but none of a woman who might be her mother. "She asks that question constantly," Alexei said without preamble, moving to pour himself a glass of what looked like expensive vodka, despite it being barely 9 a.m. "Every nanny we've had has quit within 2 months. They say she's too needy, too anxious." "Where's her mother?" Hannah asked, then immediately regretted the boldness. Alexei's hand stilled on the glass. Gone. She left when Yelena was 6 months old. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me that people leave. Always. He turned those ice-blue eyes on her again. The question is, how long before you leave too? Hannah thought of her empty apartment, her maxed-out credit cards, her complete lack of family or support system. But more than that, she thought of the little girl in the dining room, asking if she'd done something wrong just for speaking. I won't leave, she said simply. Everyone says that. I'm not everyone. Hannah met his gaze steadily. I know what it's like to be abandoned. I would never do that to a child. Something shifted in Alexei's expression. Surprise, maybe even respect. The job pays well, but it's demanding. Yelena has nightmares almost every night. She's clingy. She needs constant reassurance. She needs love, Hannah said quietly. Love. Alexei said the word like it was foreign. Love doesn't keep people safe in my world, Miss Martinez. Discipline does. Structure does. She's 7 years old. She needs both. They stared at each other across the office, and Hannah felt something electric pass between them. A challenge, an understanding, something that made her pulse quicken despite herself. So your room is on the 2nd floor next to Yelena's, Alexei said finally. You start immediately. Hannah's room was simple but elegant. A queen bed, a desk, a window overlooking the pool. But what struck her most was its location. She could hear everything from Yelena's room next door, including the soft whimpering that started around 10 p.m. that first night. She found Yelena sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. Did I wake you up? Yelena asked immediately. Are you mad at me? I'm sorry. Oh, sweetheart. Hannah sat on the edge of the bed, her heart breaking. I'm not mad. I could never be mad at you for having feelings. The other nannies got mad. They said I was too much trouble. Hannah gently brushed the tears from Yelena's cheeks. Well, I'm not the other nannies, and you're not trouble. You're perfect exactly as you are. Yelena studied her with those wise brown eyes. Are you going to leave too? No, baby. I'm going to stay right here. Promise? Hannah thought of her own childhood, of the promises that were broken, the people who left. But looking at this beautiful, broken little girl, she knew she meant it with every fiber of her being. I promise. For the first time since Hannah had arrived, Yelena smiled. From the doorway, unnoticed by both of them, Alexei Kozlov watched with an expression he hadn't worn in 7 years. Hope. 2 weeks into her new life, Hannah had established a routine that seemed to be working. Yelena still had nightmares, but they were less frequent. More importantly, she was starting to laugh, really laugh, for the first time in months. Hannah, are you mad at me? Yelena asked for the 3rd time that morning as Hannah braided her hair for school. Why would I be mad, sweetheart? I spilled orange juice on my uniform. Hannah turned Yelena around to face her, kneeling so they were eye level. Yelena, listen to me very carefully. Accidents happen. Spilling juice, dropping things, making mistakes. None of that makes me mad at you. None of that makes me want to leave, okay? Yelena nodded, but Hannah could see the doubt still lingering in her brown eyes. It would take time to undo 7 years of anxiety, but Hannah was patient. She'd had to learn patience the hard way. Besides, Hannah added with a grin, I spilled coffee on myself this morning. Should I be mad at me? Yelena giggled, a sound that never failed to make Hannah's heart soar. No, that's silly. Exactly. So no more asking if I'm mad, deal? Deal. The morning routine continued smoothly until Alexei appeared in the kitchen, and Hannah's breath caught the way it always did. Today he wore a black suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, his white dress shirt open at the collar as always, revealing that tantalizing glimpse of the wolf tattoo. His platinum Rolex caught the Miami sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Good morning, Papa, Yelena said, immediately straightening in her chair. Good morning, little wolf. The endearment was soft, affectionate, and Hannah felt something warm unfurl in her chest at the gentleness in his voice. Are you mad at me? Yelena asked automatically, and Hannah saw Alexei's jaw tighten. No, Yelena, I'm not mad. Hannah watched the interaction with growing understanding. Alexei loved his daughter desperately. That much was obvious in every look, every gesture. But he didn't know how to show it in a way that made Yelena feel secure. He was trying to protect her by keeping emotional distance, not realizing that distance was exactly what was hurting her. "I'll drive Yelena to school today," Alexei announced, checking his watch. "I can take her," Hannah offered. "I know you have meetings." "I said I'll take her." The words came out sharper than intended, and both Hannah and Yelena flinched. "Did I do something wrong?" Yelena asked immediately, her voice small. Alexei's expression softened instantly. "No, little wolf. Papa I want to spend time with you." After they left, Hannah found herself alone in the mansion for the first time. She wandered through the rooms, marveling at the luxury, but also noticing the emptiness. There were no family photos beyond those of Yelena, no personal touches that spoke of warmth or happiness. It was beautiful, but it felt like a museum rather than a home. She was in Alexei's office, dusting the bookshelves when she found it. A letter, yellowed with age, tucked between two books on Russian literature. The handwriting was feminine, delicate. "My love, I can't raise our daughter in this world. She deserves a normal life, away from the violence, away from the constant fear. I know you'll never let her go with me. Your family, your world, your rules always come first. Since I know this won't happen because you won't let her go with me, I say goodbye. Maybe someday you'll understand that love sometimes means letting go. Take care of her. Give her the childhood I can't. Forgive me." Mia Hannah's hands trembled as she read the letter. This was why Yelena constantly asked if people were mad at her, why she lived in fear of being abandoned. Her mother had left, and in her 7-year-old mind it must be because she wasn't good enough, wasn't worth staying for. "What are you doing in here?" Hannah spun around to find Alexei in the doorway, his ice-blue eyes blazing with anger. She quickly put the letter back, but it was too late. "I was just dusting. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" "To what? Snoop through my private things?" He strode into the room and Hannah instinctively stepped back. This was the dangerous man she'd heard whispered about, the one who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. "I wasn't snooping. The letter fell out when I moved the books. And you read it." Yes, I'm sorry." Alexei moved closer, and Hannah could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her head spin. "What did you think of my wife's farewell note?" "I think she was scared," Hannah said quietly, "and I think she made a terrible mistake." "Mistake?" His voice was dangerously soft. "She left a beautiful little girl who thinks everything is her fault. She left a man who—" Hannah stopped herself before she said too much. "Who what?" Hannah met his gaze, refusing to back down, despite the intimidation radiating from him. "Who clearly loved her enough to let her go, even though it destroyed him." Something flickered in Alexei's eyes. Surprise, pain, something vulnerable that he quickly masked. "You don't know anything about love, Miss Martinez. You're 23 years old." "I know about abandonment," Hannah shot back. "I know about feeling like you're not worth staying for. And I know that little girl upstairs is carrying guilt that isn't hers to carry. Don't," the word was sharp, final, "don't psychoanalyze my family. Then stop making your daughter pay for your wife's choices." The words hung in the air between them, charged with tension and truth. Alexei's hands clenched into fists at his sides, and for a moment, Hannah thought he might actually lose control. Instead, he stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You're walking a very dangerous line." "Someone has to," Hannah whispered, her heart pounding. "That little girl deserves better than living in fear. And what would you know about what she deserves? You're nobody. You have no family, no connections, no one who would even notice if you disappeared." The words hit like physical blows, but Hannah didn't flinch. "You're right, I am nobody. But that little girl doesn't see me as nobody. She sees me as someone who stays." Alexei stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Hannah alone with her racing heart and the sudden terrifying realization that she was falling for a man who could destroy her with a single word. But more than that, she was falling for his daughter, and that made her more dangerous to his carefully controlled world than any enemy ever could. The nightmare that changed everything came on a Thursday night during Miami's storm season. Thunder rolled across Biscayne Bay like artillery fire, and lightning illuminated the mansion in stark, dramatic flashes. Hannah had been lying awake, listening to the rain pound against her windows, when Yelena's scream cut through the storm. She ran to the child's room without hesitation, finding Yelena sitting up in bed, sobbing and shaking. "Hannah!" Yelena reached for her desperately. "Are you mad at me? I screamed too loud, didn't I? Never, baby, never." Hannah gathered the little girl into her arms, feeling how small and fragile she was. "It was just a bad dream." "Everyone left again," Yelena whispered against Hannah's shoulder. "In the dream, everyone left and I was all alone, and it was because I was bad." Hannah's heart shattered. She held Yelena tighter, rocking her gently as lightning flashed outside. "You're not bad, sweetheart. You're perfect, and I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "I promise." They sat like that for several minutes, Yelena's sobs gradually subsiding. But when Hannah tried to tuck her back into bed, Yelena's grip on her hand tightened. "Don't go," she whispered. "Please don't go." "I'm just going back to my room right next door. But what if you change your mind? What if you decide I'm too much trouble and leave while I'm sleeping?" The raw fear in Yelena's voice broke something inside Hannah. This beautiful, innocent child was living in constant terror of abandonment, and it was destroying her. "Yelena," Hannah said softly, sitting back down on the bed. "Look at me." Brown eyes met hers, wide and trusting despite the fear. "What if I told you a secret?" Yelena nodded eagerly. "I was in foster care my whole life. Do you know what that means?" "No. It means I never had a mommy or daddy. I lived with different families, but none of them kept me forever. I know exactly how it feels to be scared that people will leave." Yelena's eyes widened. "You never had a mommy?" "Never. And you know what I wished for every single night?" "What?" "I wished for a little girl just like you to love. Someone who would let me be their mommy, even if it was just pretend." Tears filled Yelena's eyes again, but these were different tears. "Really? Really?" Yelena was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then, in a voice so small Hannah almost missed it, she whispered, "Hannah? Yes, sweetheart. Can you be my mum? Just today? So I can sleep?" The words hit Hannah like a physical blow. She felt tears spring to her own eyes as she looked at this precious child who was offering her the one thing she'd always wanted, a chance to be someone's mother. "Yes," Hannah whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I can be your mom today." Yelena's face lit up with pure joy. "Really, you want to? More than anything in the world. Can you sleep here? Mommies sleep close to their babies when they're scared." Hannah didn't hesitate. She climbed into the big bed and Yelena immediately curled up against her side, small and warm and trusting. "I love you, Mommy," Yelena whispered sleepily. Hannah's tears fell freely now. "I love you too, baby, so much. Are you still going to love me tomorrow?" "I'm going to love you forever." Within minutes, Yelena was asleep, her breathing deep and peaceful for the first time in weeks. Hannah lay awake, stroking the child's blonde hair and marveling at how complete she felt. This was what she'd been missing her entire life, this feeling of being needed, of being someone's whole world. She must have dozed off, because the next thing she knew, sunlight was streaming through the windows and a deep voice was saying her name. "Hannah." She opened her eyes to find Alexei standing beside the bed, fully dressed in another expensive suit, his ice-blue eyes unreadable as he took in the scene, his daughter curled up against Hannah like she belonged there. "I can explain," Hannah started, but Alexei held up a hand. "Yelena," he said softly. "Time to wake up, little wolf." Yelena stirred, then sat up with a bright smile. "Papa, Hannah is my mommy today." Hannah saw Alexei's jaw tighten, saw something flash in his eyes, pain, anger, something she couldn't identify. "Is she?" he said carefully. "Yes. She said she could be my mommy just for today, so I could sleep, and I slept all night without any more bad dreams." That's good. Alexei's voice was strained. Why don't you go get ready for school? Hannah and I need to talk. Yelena bounded out of bed, happier than Hannah had ever seen her. Okay, bye, Mommy. She threw her arms around Hannah's neck, planting a kiss on her cheek before skipping out of the room. The silence that followed was deafening. You had no right, Alexei said finally, his voice deadly quiet. Hannah climbed out of bed, suddenly aware that she was wearing only a thin tank top and shorts. She had a nightmare. She was terrified. So, you decided to play house with my daughter. I decided to comfort a scared little girl. By letting her call you Mommy. Alexei stepped closer, and Hannah could see the fury radiating from him. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've given her one night of peace. You've given her false hope. You've made her believe in something that isn't real. Hannah felt her own anger rising. What isn't real? The fact that I love her. The fact that she needs a mother figure in her life. The fact that you're temporary. The words were like ice. You're an employee, Miss Martinez. Nothing more. I'm the person who held her while she cried. I'm the person who made her feel safe enough to sleep through the night. You're the person who's going to break her heart when you leave. I told you, I'm not leaving. Everyone leaves. Alexei's voice was raw now, and Hannah caught a glimpse of the pain he kept buried beneath the cold exterior. My wife left. Every nanny before you left. You will leave too, and my daughter will be destroyed. I'm not your wife, Hannah said fiercely, and I'm not every other nanny. I'm someone who knows what it's like to be abandoned, and I would never, ever do that to Yelena. You don't understand the world you're in, Alexei said, moving even closer. You don't understand the dangers, the enemies, the reasons why people leave. Then help me understand. They were standing so close now that Hannah could see the flecks of silver in his ice-blue eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. The tension between them was electric, dangerous, and Hannah realized with a start that this wasn't just about Yelena anymore. You want to understand? Alexei's voice was rough, and his hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. I'm a man who destroys everything he touches. I'm a man whose enemies would kill you just to hurt me. I'm a man who can't afford to care about anyone. But you do care, Hannah whispered, her heart pounding. You care about Yelena, and you're starting to care about me. That's exactly the problem. The explosion that shattered the morning calm came at exactly 7:23 a.m., 3 days after Hannah had spent the night in Yelena's bed. Hannah was in the kitchen making breakfast when the windows rattled and a sound like thunder, but not thunder, rolled across Star Island. What was that? Yelena asked, looking up from her cereal with wide brown eyes. Before Hannah could answer, Alexei burst through the front door, his white dress shirt torn and bloodied, his ice-blue eyes wild with a fury she'd never seen before. Pack. Now. His voice was sharp, commanding. Both of you, we leave in 10 minutes. Papa? Yelena's voice was small, scared. Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? No, little wolf. Alexei's voice gentled instantly as he knelt beside his daughter's chair. You did nothing wrong, but we need to go on a trip. Hannah saw the way his hands shook as he touched Yelena's face, saw the barely controlled panic in his expression. What happened? My warehouse, someone sent a message. His eyes met hers across the kitchen, and she saw something that terrified her. Fear, not for himself, but for them. Hannah, are you mad at me? Yelena asked automatically, the stress triggering her usual anxiety. Never, baby. Hannah moved to Yelena's side, her mind racing. We're just going on an adventure, right? But even as she said the words, she could see Alexei's men moving through the mansion, checking windows, speaking in rapid Russian into their phones. This wasn't an adventure. This was life or death. 5 minutes, Alexei said, heading for the stairs. Bring only what you need. Hannah grabbed Yelena's hand and ran to their rooms. As she threw clothes into a bag with shaking hands, she could hear Yelena in the next room crying. I'm sorry, Yelena was sobbing. I'll be good, I promise. Don't leave me, please don't leave me. Hannah dropped her bag and ran to Yelena's room, finding the little girl curled up on her bed, shaking with terror. Sweetheart, what's wrong? When bad things happen, people leave, Yelena whispered. That's what happened with Mommy. Something bad happened and she left. Hannah's heart broke. She gathered Yelena into her arms, holding her tight. I'm not leaving you. We're going together, remember? You and me and your papa. Promise? I promise. But even as she said the words, Hannah felt a chill of fear. She was nobody, no family, no connections, no one who would even notice if she disappeared. If Alexei decided she was a liability, if keeping her safe became too dangerous, would he really choose her over his daughter's safety? They made it to the garage in 8 minutes. Alexei was waiting beside a black SUV with bulletproof glass, his platinum Rolex catching the fluorescent lights as he checked his weapon. Get in, he ordered. But his voice was gentler when he spoke to Yelena. Buckle up, little wolf. As they pulled out of the garage, Hannah saw the smoke rising from the direction of the port. Whatever had happened to Alexei's warehouse, it was big enough to be seen from miles away. Where are we going? Hannah asked quietly. Safe house outside the city. Alexei's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. This is what I meant about my world, Hannah. This is why people leave. Yelena had fallen asleep in her car seat, exhausted by the stress and fear. Hannah reached back to stroke her hair, her heart aching at how small and vulnerable she looked. She's not safe with me, Alexei said suddenly, his voice raw. Neither of you are. This isn't your fault, isn't it? He glanced at her in the rearview mirror, and she saw the self-loathing in his eyes. I brought this life to her. I brought it to you. You didn't ask for this. I chose this life. Every day I choose it. They drove in silence for an hour, through Miami's sprawling suburbs and into the Everglades. The safe house turned out to be a modest cabin hidden among the cypress trees, nothing like the luxury of the Star Island mansion. It's not much, Alexei said as he carried their bags inside, but it's secure. The cabin was simple but comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living room with a fireplace. Hannah helped Yelena settle in, but the little girl was clingy, afraid to let either adult out of her sight. Are you mad at me? She asked Hannah for the 10th time that day. Never, sweetheart. Are you going to leave? Hannah glanced at Alexei, who was standing by the window, watching the tree line with the intensity of a predator. I'm not going anywhere. That night, after Yelena had finally fallen asleep between them on the couch, Alexei and Hannah sat in the kitchen, the weight of the day's events heavy between them. Tell me about the warehouse, Hannah said quietly. Alexei was quiet for a long moment, then poured himself a glass of vodka. It was a message from the Torino family. They want my territory, my connections. What kind of message? The kind that kills innocent people. His voice was flat, emotionless, but Hannah could see the pain in his eyes. 3 of my men died today, good men with families. I'm sorry. This is my world, Hannah. This is what loving me means. Constant danger, constant fear, people dying because of choices I made years ago. Hannah studied his profile in the dim light. Even exhausted and bloodied, he was beautiful in a dangerous way. Sharp cheekbones, the wolf tattoo visible at his collar, the Rolex that never left his wrist. Is that what you think? She asked softly. That I love you? Alexei's hand stilled on his glass. Don't. Don't what? Don't say things you don't mean. Hannah stood up and moved to where he sat, her heart pounding. What if I do mean them? Then you're more dangerous than any enemy I've ever faced. She reached out and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble, the tension in his jaw. Alexei, you don't understand what you're asking for. I understand that I love your daughter. I understand that she needs me. And I understand that you're terrified of letting anyone get close because everyone you've ever loved has left. Because I destroy everything I touch. You didn't destroy Yelena. You saved her. I put her in danger every day just by existing, and you protect her every day by loving her. Hannah moved closer until she was standing between his knees. Let me help you protect her. Let me help you love her. Alexei looked up at her, and for a moment his carefully constructed walls crumbled. She saw the man beneath the monster, the father who would die for his daughter, the husband who had been destroyed by abandonment, the leader who carried the weight of every death on his shoulders. "If I let you in," he said quietly, "if I let myself feel this and something happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me." "You can't promise that." "No," Hannah agreed. "But I can promise that I'll fight for us, all of us. I can promise that I'm not going anywhere." Alexei stood up slowly until they were face to face, his ice-blue eyes searching hers. "You're asking me to risk everything." "I'm asking you to trust me." For a moment, Hannah thought he might kiss her. The tension between them was electric, dangerous, and she could see the war playing out in his expression, desire versus duty, love versus protection. Then Yelena's voice cut through the moment. "Mommy? Papa? I had another bad dream." The attack came at dawn. Hannah woke to the sound of breaking glass, and Alexei's voice sharp and urgent. "Get Yelena, bathroom now." She didn't hesitate. Muscle memory from her years in dangerous foster homes kicked in, and she scooped up the still sleeping Yelena and ran for the bathroom, locking the door behind them. "Hannah?" Yelena was awake now, confused and scared. "Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, we're just playing a game. We have to be very, very quiet, okay?" Outside she could hear gunshots, shouting in Russian and English, the sound of furniture being overturned. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she held Yelena close, trying to shield her from the sounds of violence. Then, suddenly, silence. "Hannah!" Alexei's voice, rough and urgent. "It's clear." She opened the bathroom door to find the cabin destroyed, windows shattered, furniture overturned, bullet holes in the walls. Alexei stood in the center of it all, his white dress shirt torn and bloodied, his ice-blue eyes wild. "We need to go. Now." "Papa, are you hurt?" Yelena reached for her father, and Hannah saw Alexei's expression soften instantly. "I'm fine, little wolf, but we need to leave this place." As they gathered their things, Hannah caught sight of herself in a broken mirror, pale, shaken, but unharmed. She looked like a woman who had just survived a war zone, which she realized was exactly what she was. "Where do we go now?" she asked as they climbed into the SUV. "Somewhere they'll never find us," Alexei said grimly. "I'm calling in every favor I have." The drive back to Miami was tense, silent except for Yelena's occasional questions. "Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong?" Each question was like a knife to Hannah's heart, a reminder of how much trauma this beautiful child had already endured. They didn't go back to the mansion. Instead, Alexei drove to a nondescript building in downtown Miami, leading them through a series of security doors to what appeared to be a high-tech command center. "Dmitri," Alexei called to a man hunched over multiple computer screens. "Status report. The Torinos hit 3 more locations overnight," Dmitri replied in accented English. "They're making a play for everything." "And our response?" "Ready when you are, boss." Hannah watched this exchange with growing understanding. This wasn't just about territory or money. This was war, and she and Yelena were caught in the middle of it. "I need to handle this," Alexei said, turning to Hannah. "There's a secure apartment upstairs. You and Yelena will be safe there." "For how long?" "Until it's over." "And if it's never over?" Alexei's jaw tightened. "It will be, one way or another." The apartment was comfortable but clearly designed for security. Reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, multiple escape routes. Yelena explored with the resilience of childhood, but Hannah could see the stress wearing on her. "Hannah," Yelena said that evening as they sat on the couch, "are you going to leave when the scary stuff is over?" "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "The other nannies always left when things got scary. They said Papa's life was too dangerous." Hannah pulled Yelena closer, her heart aching. "I'm not the other nannies." "But you're scared too." "I can tell." Hannah was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. "Yes, I'm scared, but do you know what I'm most scared of?" "What?" "I'm scared of leaving you. I'm scared of not being here to take care of you and love you." Yelena looked up at her with those wise brown eyes. "Really? Really? You know what I told you about never having a mommy?" Yelena nodded. "Well, I never had a little girl to love either, and now I have you, and you're the most important thing in the world to me. More important than being safe. Much more important. Yelena was quiet for a long moment, processing this. Then, Hannah, yes, can you be my mum? Not just today. Can you be my mum forever? Hannah felt tears spring to her eyes. Do you want me to be? More than anything. Then yes, baby, I'll be your mum forever. It was then that Alexei appeared in the doorway, and Hannah realized he'd been listening. His ice-blue eyes were unreadable as he took in the scene. His daughter curled up against Hannah, both of them looking like they belonged together. Yelena, he said softly, it's time for bed. Papa! Yelena jumped up and ran to him. Hannah said she'll be my mummy forever. Hannah saw something flicker in Alexei's expression. Pain, longing, fear. Did she? Yes, and I won't have to ask if people are mad at me anymore, because mummies love you even when you make mistakes. Alexei's gaze met Hannah's over Yelena's head, and she saw the war playing out in his expression. He wanted this. She could see it in every line of his body, but he was terrified of it too. After Yelena was asleep, Alexei found Hannah on the apartment's small balcony, looking out over the Miami skyline. You can't promise her forever, he said without preamble. Why not? Because forever doesn't exist in my world. Hannah turned to face him, taking in his appearance, the torn shirt, the exhaustion in his eyes, the way his hand unconsciously went to his weapon when a car backfired in the distance. Then maybe it's time to change your world. It's not that simple. Isn't it? Hannah stepped closer to him. You have enough money to disappear. You have connections, resources. You could take Yelena and start over somewhere safe. And leave my men? My responsibilities. Your daughter is your responsibility. I'm your responsibility now too, if you'll let me be. Alexei stared at her for a long moment. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking you to choose us. I'm asking you to choose love over fear. And if I can't protect you, if choosing love gets you killed. Hannah reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble, the tension in his jaw. Then at least we'll have had this. At least Yelena will know what it feels like to have a family. Hannah, I love you, she said simply. I love your daughter. I love the man you are when you let your walls down. And I'm not going anywhere. Alexei closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, Hannah saw something she'd never seen before. Surrender. If I do this, he said quietly, if I choose this life with you, there's no going back. I don't want to go back. You'll be mine. Completely. Forever. I already am. And then finally Alexei Kozlov kissed her. It was desperate, hungry, full of all the emotion he'd been holding back. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I love you too, he whispered against her lips. God help us both, but I love you too. From inside the apartment came a small voice. Mommy? Papa? Can I sleep with you tonight? I promise I won't ask if you're mad at me. They looked at each other and laughed. The first real laughter either of them had shared in weeks. Come on, Hannah said, taking Alexei's hand. Let's go be a family. 2 years later. The beach house in the Bahamas was nothing like the Star Island mansion, smaller, warmer, filled with the sound of laughter and the smell of Hannah's cooking. Alexei had kept his word about changing their world, liquidating his Miami operations and investing in legitimate businesses that allowed them to live quietly, safely, happily. Papa, look! 9-year-old Yelena ran up from the water's edge, her blonde hair flying behind her, a perfect seashell clutched in her hand. It's for Mommy. Hannah looked up from the book she was reading, her hand unconsciously moving to the small bump beneath her sundress. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Are you mad at me for getting sand on the blanket? Yelena asked, but the question was automatic now, without the desperate fear it used to carry. Never, Hannah and Alexei said in unison, and Yelena giggled. I know, I just like to check sometimes. Alexei pulled Hannah closer against his side, his platinum Rolex glinting in the Caribbean sun. The wolf tattoo on his neck had faded slightly, but it was still visible. a reminder of who he used to be and how far they'd all come. "Any regrets?" he murmured against her ear. Hannah looked at Yelena, who was now building an elaborate sandcastle and chattering happily to herself. She thought about the scared little girl who used to ask if everyone was mad at her, who used to beg for someone to be her mummy just for one day. "Only one," Hannah said softly. "What's that?" "That it took us so long to find each other." Alexei kissed her temple, his hand joining hers on her growing belly. "We have forever now." "Forever," Hannah agreed, watching their daughter play in the surf. "Forever sounds perfect,